This is the new iPhone 15 Pro Max, and while it looks similar to this, the older 14 Pro Max, Apple's made some very important changes to it. Hey guys, Ash here, and today on C4E Tech, let's take a look at 10 important changes that Apple's made to their newest flagship. Starting off at number 10, the build. Now at first glance, both phones might appear identical, but there are differences. The frame that you see here, stainless steel is out and it's been replaced by a titanium alloy. And the finish itself, on the 14 Pro Max, it's more glossy and reflective, but now we get a more subtle brushed matte finish. That said, it still continues to pick up fingerprints just as much. Now do notice that there is a slight curve at the edges. This makes the 15 Pro Max easier to wield. The phone doesn't cut into the palm of your hand as much as before. That said, personally, I feel older iPhones with the curved sides felt way more ergonomic to hold. But that design did come with its own set of issues. Now talking about issues, the back, it still retains the same matte finish as last gen, but is seemingly easier to crack under pressure. This might have something to do with Apple making the backs easier to replace. To know more about this, do check out JerryRig Everything's exhaustive video on durability. I'll leave a link to it below the like button. Coming back to ergonomics, the use of titanium mainly helps bringing the weight down considerably. At 221 grams, the 15 Pro Max is Apple's lightest Pro Max ever, lighter than its predecessor by about 20 grams. And now let's take a look at change number 9, the colors. What you've been seeing here so far, this is what Apple calls natural titanium. They also offer the 15 Pro Max in 3 other colors: black titanium, white titanium, and blue titanium. These replace space black, silver, gold, and deep purple from last year. Personally, I would have liked to see something with a little more character, brighter colors, maybe darker shades of the regular iPhone 15's color options. The display hasn't really changed. We still get a ceramic shield protected 6.7-inch OLED panel with a 1.5K-ish resolution. There's still the same LTPO tech that lets the phone vary refresh rates between 1 and 120Hz. The support for HDR10 and Dolby Vision. The peak brightness remains at 2000 nits. That said, when shooting outdoors, I noticed something important. The 14 Pro Max, it had a tendency to drop the brightness levels once things got a little hot. Now that happens a lot when you live in a beautiful desert. It's beautiful, sure, but it's still a desert nonetheless. Now the 15 Pro Max does the same, but it takes longer to drop brightness levels, and when it does, it's also quicker to go back to the higher levels. Also, the bezels have been slimmed down this time, so the phone is about a millimeter shorter and narrower, though it is now 0.4 millimeters thicker. But these are all just numbers, just theoretical. Let me put it this way, the 15 Pro Max fits perfectly in an old 14 Pro Max's case. But when you try the reverse, the increased thickness might not let you do it. And of course, there's also this to think about. Our number 7, the action button. The mute switch that we've had on every iPhone since the first one launched, it's now gone, replaced instead by this, the action button, a customizable key that by default works as a mute toggle. So long press to mute the phone, long press to turn the ringer back on, and each long press has a different kind of haptic feedback, so you'd still know what you're doing, even if you're doing it blind, say the phone's in your pocket. Now we've seen these kind of keys on the Android side of things. Remember the Bixby key? Surprisingly, Apple has been way more open with respect to what they let you do with this button, which is pretty much anything you want. Yep, you can even set it to trigger Google Assistant if that's something you want to do. And it's not just that. Say you want to set it to launch the camera. You can choose which mode you want it to launch, and when it does, it's pretty intuitive. Press the action button once and we've got a picture clicked. Now press and hold it to record video. It's really nice to see a fresh feature that's actually an improvement on the one it replaces, and also happens to be working fully as intended out of the gate. Now with optics, all the talk's been about that one sensor that's seen a major change. The telephoto now uses Apple's tetraprism design for 5x zoom, and with their new 3D sensor shift OIS, it's capable of shooting very stable zoomed in videos. Looking at these samples, Apple seems to have done very well with their periscope zoom implementation, but honestly, I was more excited about the primary. On paper, you don't see a whole lot of change. It's again a 48 megapixel sensor with the same f1.78 lens, sensor shift OIS, but it now downsamples to 24 megapixels by default. And the results I got, they seem to be better than what I could get on my 14 Pro Max. Smart HDR also seems to have been improved, and on top of that, check this out, you now get 3 choices for the primary camera. So it kinda crops in and super samples the image. Now if you've seen my coverage of the Nubia Z50, which for one uses an actual 35mm equivalent lens for the primary, that is something I really enjoyed using. So while this is a software solution here, I'm definitely excited to test it out. Now here's another thing. All new iPhones capture depth information when a subject is detected in the shot. This means you don't have to manually switch to portrait anymore. So you're scrolling through your gallery and think, hey, this shot would have been better if I'd shot it portrait. You can go ahead and make that change in post. Cool, right? And this is something you can even do with cinematic camera shots. Adjust focus after the footage has been shot. Talking about video, you now get smooth continuous zoom at 4K 60. Seems very nice to use. And overall, the camera experience, the results, they seem to have been improved, whether it's the primary or the ultra wide or even the selfie camera. I think the 15 Pro Max does fare a little better, especially with the dynamic range. And a large reason for that is number 5, the SoC. The 15 Pro Max uses Apple's A17 Pro chip, the world's first 3nm SoC. Now till last year, the regular iPhone models and the Pro models all used the same chip. But last year, we saw that change. The regular iPhone 14 and 14 Plus, they got the A15, while the Pro models got the A16. Similarly, this year, the regular iPhone 15s get last year's flagship A16 chip, with the Pros getting the new A17 Pro. That Pro moniker, it leads me to believe next year Apple's gonna try to widen this gap between the regular and Pro models even more by going for a toned down version of this chip called A17, which they'd use with the regular iPhones. Anyways, I digress. The A17 Pro seems to be an incredibly strong SoC, and Apple claims it's got the most powerful GPU on a phone today, to the point where we are gonna be seeing console games, including the likes of Resident Evil Village and the Resident Evil 4 remake, be ported over. The last time I can remember being this excited about AAA games being ported over was when this device was launched. Here's to hoping things go better for Apple. Now it's worth noting that there are some reports coming out of the iPhone 15 Pro Max overheating and throttling. I haven't noticed any issues yet, but I'm gonna have to test my 15 Pro Max more thoroughly, and I'll have more to say in my full review. At number 3, we have a small little feature that's not exclusive to this phone, but I feel is important enough to mention. Voice isolation. Just see this. Let me turn this cooler on.
And now when I'm on a call, this is what the other person hears. Now let me go ahead and turn on voice isolation. And now, this is how I sound. Pretty, right?
Brands offering some kind of noise cancellation is nothing new, but the fact that this is not app dependent and can be used by third-party apps makes it very interesting to me. Now at the start of this video, we saw that the 15 Pro Max is lighter than its predecessor. Now despite that, the battery capacity has gone up. At 44-41 mAh, we get a slight increase in battery capacity, and the charging, wireless, wired, the speed's the same. The 15 Pro Max is still gonna get you roughly 50% charge in half an hour, and of course you don't get the charger in the box. What you do get is this: a SIM tool, a leaflet, and an Apple sticker. And that's followed by a braided Type-C to Type-C cable. And this is number 1, the biggest change we've seen from Apple, USB Type-C. Now while all iPhones this year come with a Type-C port, the Pro models get USB 3. So given Type-C, you can now actually have one charger for your MacBooks, your iPad Pros, your iPhones. Hell, Apple's even launching new AirPods Pro 2 with Type-C. Additionally, you can now use your iPhone to charge other devices like that AirPods Pro 2. Now for me, what I really like about this is how we can use the new iPhones with certain accessories we already own. Like in my case, that's the Razer Kishi V2. You can also connect these new iPhones to a monitor to output things on a larger screen. Of course, Apple doesn't have a DeX mode or anything, and the accessory compatibility is not universal. For example, my GameSir X2 Pro does not work with the new iPhones, but the convenience and the access to a truckload of accessories without having to pay the MFI tax, that seems to be a great step forward. And that's 10 changes. Oh, wait, something's not right. I missed one, didn't I? Number 4, price. The Pro Max prices have been hiked in a lot of markets. In the USA, for example, last year the iPhone 14 Pro Max launched at $1099 USD for 128 gigs, with the 256 costing $1199. This year, 256 is the new base and it starts at $1199, so the price of admission seems to have gone up. In India, it's worse. Last year, the Pro Max started at 1.4 lakhs for the 128, with the 256 costing 1.5 lakhs. This year though, the Pro Max starts at 1.6, so India gets a higher hike than most places again. And that's 10 changes with the new iPhone 15 Pro Max, for real this time. Thanks for watching, bye bye.